Welcome to Biblically Lit, conversations that illuminate Scripture and ignite faith. I'm your host, MindiJoFurby, author and founder of Kingswind Books. Hello, friends. It has been a minute since we have been able to record an episode, and the break was not expected. It was not planned. I shared kind of during the last episodes that we were in the middle of moving, and we have moved, and so that's great. But what I didn't really anticipate in moving into the new house was all the projects. Well, I knew we had lots of projects to do, but I didn't quite put it together that the house would be a disaster. I really wouldn't have a place to set stuff up to do the podcast. So that kind of took me off guard. And then I got sick for a while. I had the cold from not a good place for 6 weeks, and I didn't have a voice, and you wouldn't have want to listen to me. So anyway, it's been a really long time, but I'm glad that we are back, and this episode is really just going to be sharing the story of the move, and that sounds like it has nothing to do with God or the Bible or anything, but in actuality, it has everything to do with Him, as you will soon see. And I have my husband with me again, Sean. Hey, babe.
Hey.
Hey. Mostly to keep me on track, and then because this is obviously just as much his story as it is mine. But we want to share the story to kind of prove and just provide evidence that everything in our lives has to do with God, because He divinely orchestrates and coordinates everything, from small decisions to huge ones like moving, which is literally life-changing. But in every decision, every single one, we are being sovereignly moved by the hand of God and have choices. We're either going to choose to surrender to His lead and follow in obedience, or the opposite, which never ends well. So I've prepared a basic outline for this episode just to keep us moving, but most of it's just going to be a conversation as we kind of recap and share all of the things. And we do pray and have prayed that it blesses you tremendously and confirms yet again that God is actively working in and through all of our lives today. So I thought it would be fun to begin with kind of our real estate story in general, because every single one of our moves and houses has been a God thing since day one. And our first house was one we will never forget for a lot of reasons. But I'd like you to take the lead on that one, babe, since it was kind of your lead to begin with.
Sure.
So house number one.
House number one, yeah. So we were dating at the time. Mm-hmm. And I guess right around the time we had met, probably right before, actually, I had seen this little house. We lived in North Carolina. I had seen this little house in Aberdeen on Main Street in downtown Aberdeen. A friend of mine, of the families, I guess that's what a family friend would be, was into real estate investing, and I had talked to him a little bit about finding my first home and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, he had connected with a local bank that had a foreclosure in Aberdeen, this little house, and he thought it might be a good opportunity for me to jump in and get my first home. And so I met with the banker that was responsible for the foreclosures. I can't remember the name of the bank. It was some little small town bank. But anyway, I made an offer on the house. It was I don't know, late summer maybe that I did this, and I guess it was right around the time we met. Yeah, probably. So anyway, made an offer on the house. It was obviously low. Little backstory on the house itself: it was I don't know, maybe 1,000 square feet.
Maybe.
Little, built in the 60s, little cottage house, and it had a fire in the attic and had burned most of the roof, and it also had a foundation that was falling apart. And so a builder had bought it to flip it and had redone the foundation, rebuilt the roof, gutted the interior of the house, and that was pretty much all he had done. His business went under and went bankrupt and foreclosed on. So made an offer on the house. The banker basically said, thanks, but no thanks. That's a little low. I think we'll just fix it up ourselves and sell it. But we'll let you know when it hits the market if that's something that you want to do. Okay, fine. I tried. Didn't work. And so I guess it was about 4 months later. We're getting towards the end of the year. I hadn't heard anything from the bank, hadn't pursued the house any further. And I got a call out of the blue saying, hey, are you still interested in this house? And so Mindy and I had started dating. Kind of was pretty obvious where it was going. Once she met me, it was love at first sight, and we were heading towards marriage. So her dad, was getting to know Mark more, and he was, or still is, a financial advisor. And so I thought, well, hey, I've had this house that I've been looking at. Yeah, was trying to figure it out on my own before, but here's a finance guy. Let me show him what I'm thinking and if it makes sense. And I remember him driving up. He had a white Mercedes sedan. I remember him pulling in the driveway and getting out. And he's like, "Oh, this is nice. What are you thinking about offering?" And I said, "Well," I originally offered, I can't remember, whatever the number was. I said, but I think I'm going to do 30 grand lower this time, just because it's been a while, and how bad do they really want to get rid of it? And he was like, "You can buy a house for that number?" Because they had just moved from California to North Carolina. He's like, you couldn't even buy a trailer. A home. And I was like, well, I mean, it's like gutted out inside. It needs a lot of work, all that. He's like, who cares? Buy it. Why would you buy it? So again, talk about the timing and sovereignty of God. We ended up buying the house for substantial. It wasn't a lot of money less, but the overall price of the house, percentage wise, yes, it was considerably less than what I had originally offered. I think I closed on December 30th, something like that, of that year, and then Mindy and I got to redo it together, and it was a lot of fun. It was an adventure, and had the opportunity to do that with a lot of guys that were important to me and important in my life, and guys that just wanted to come out and hang out on the weekends. And there's not very often when you get the chance to say, hey, you want to come knock down a wall? And you're like, yeah, for sure, I want to do that. So we built some back too, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was our first home. We got to kind of put our stamp on it, and there's a whole story about when we sold it too, which nobody probably wants to hear, but
we'll probably touch on that in a minute. But when the house was condemned, there was no plumbing, there was no electricity, there was no, the foundation had been fixed, but they had brought it up, but they didn't bring the fireplace up with it. So there was this giant hole in the ground of this, in the floor, and dogs were living in it, and having puppies in it, rabid dog. Anyway, it was not habitable.
The banker would say, hey, you want me to meet you out there or give you a key so you can get in? I was like, no, we just crawl through the crawl space and
get in pretty easily,
and climb in through the fireplace, because there's a big hole in the floor. So
this was a project, and I will say, if you can survive, so we moved in right after we got back from our honeymoon. Literally. And that was the second week of November.
Yeah, we got certificate of occupancy, I think, while we were on our honeymoon.
Mm-hmm. So it took 11 and a half months to get this done, and they did most of the work themselves, but we hired out, I think, drywall and a couple of things like that. But so I was finishing up my master's, so I was back and forth at Liberty, about 3.5 hours away. So I'd come home, whenever I could. But yeah, that's great prenatal counseling. If you can do that. But we learned a lot about each other. We learned how to communicate really well. And it was a cute house. It turned out really, really, really well. And it was perfect for us, especially at that point in our lives where we didn't have much and didn't need much. And it was great. So it was really a lot of fun. Until we moved. And we moved because
we got a job in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
So we had to hit the road.
We hit the road, and then we lived in an apartment there for 8 or so months. And then I kept hearing, or I kept telling him, it's like, where do your coworkers live? Because we love Savannah, but not necessarily for like living full time. And he kept saying, well, Bluffton. They keep saying Bluffton. And I'm like, what's a Bluffton? So we went out one weekend, and I remember we took like the back way to Bluffton, and the back way from Savannah to Bluffton is not the most...
It's not the most scenic.
Visually stimulating. No. So I was a little nervous. I was like, what is this place? And this was a long time ago. Bluffton has exploded, but in the last dozen years. And so there wasn't very much there. And we looked at a few houses. And then one of the ones that we looked at, it was in a foreclosed neighborhood. So there was probably 25 houses that had been built. And then the builder, I guess, got foreclosed on or something happened. So nothing was happening with it, and the house itself was a foreclosure. But we walked in and we were like, oh, we can afford this. And it was amazing. And what's weird, foreclosures usually take a really long time and they're drawn out. But I think we put an offer in on, it's like Saturday, and we were under contract by Tuesday. It was something wild and totally not normal. And so we moved there, and it was a great house. And have we sold?
We rented the house in North Carolina for about a year.
We rented. I don't remember when we ended up selling it. So yeah, we didn't end up selling that one. So that was a stressful time financially, especially since in the midst of all of this is when God really called me to pursue full-time ministry. So again, financially, that didn't make sense at all, because we were paying rent at the apartment, and then we were paying our mortgage at the house in North Carolina, and then we ended up renting that. But it was a little wild at the time. And then when did we sell the house in Aberdeen? Do you remember?
I don't. No, I mean, it was about a year and a half after we moved here. So I think we were in that house. Yeah, we were in the Haven house.
In the house. And then we were there, and we did lots of ministry. So that's really when we started settling in and getting plugged in, and we had life groups, and that's where I started writing commentary series and doing all of this stuff. And so that was a great house. We always have had like an open door policy. And so we had people live with us when they needed a place to live. And it was definitely a house, like a home base for ministry. And it was a great house. And we were very content. It was definitely more of a row house in the sense that the houses were very, very close to each other. And that always drove Sean nuts.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. Like where I grew up in North Carolina, you know, there were like our neighborhood that I grew up in was nice, and you know, the houses weren't spectacular, but they were nice houses. But I didn't know that there were neighborhoods that the houses were 2 inches apart and all looked the same. I've never we just didn't have that.
And we did in California. That was definitely more of a thing in California. So it didn't bother me so much, but it was very, like the house was nice and the house was relatively spacious, but the lot, I think we officially got it measured because we were thinking about putting a fence in, and it extended, like we had a 10 by 10 cement pad out the back door. And I'm pretty sure it extended 10 feet past that.
There was like wetlands behind it, so we thought we had a bigger yard.
We didn't. We definitely didn't. So anyway, but then we got pregnant with our first, and we went to a friend's wedding in this other neighborhood that we had never been into before. We've obviously driven by it a million times. I never went into it. And as soon as we pulled into the gate, we were both like,
well, first of all, it had a gate.
True.
Yeah.
True. It had a gate, which is pretty cool. But there were just trees everywhere, like live oaks with the Spanish moss. Home sites were huge, like measured in acres and not feet, which was really nice. And I don't even think we made it to the venue before you were like, we have to live here one day.
Yeah. It was
pretty much love at first sight. And so we kind of just sort of kept an eye out, but again, we thought it was a pipe dream. And so we had our first, and then my parents moved down from North Carolina. And then when they were looking at houses, we were like, go to this neighborhood over here. over here. And so they ended up buying in the neighborhood, and then we got pregnant with Holland, and we were like, well, let's just see what's on the market, if there's anything. And there were 2 houses in the neighborhood, on this side of our neighborhood, that we could one we couldn't afford, and the other one we kind of could barely afford. And so we went.
It was tiny.
It was so small.
And the house we were in fit us relatively well. I mean, it was,
it definitely worked. So we knew we would have to downsize, and that's a very long story short. But the one house that was tiny, that was in our budget, that was the year of Hurricane Matthew, and there was a tropical storm before Hurricane Matthew, and that dropped a tree across the entire house. Fortunately, the lady who lived there, or wasn't living there, who owned it, wasn't living there. But it just destroyed the house. And then during Matthew, another tree fell the opposite direction. So it made a cross on top of this poor house. And I was 6 months pregnant at the time. And I was like, I don't think we have time.
No. Well, and that's that we were looking at that house. If you remember, we went, and I don't know why this is such a guy thing to say, but I was like, oh, it's been raining a lot. Let's go see what the lot looks like after it rains, when that tropical storm came through. And we pulled in the driveway, and there was just this giant tree laying across the house. So I remember calling the real estate agent. You remember that?
That's right.
And I called him. I was like, hey, well, he had already known. He already knew about it, but I was like, hey, there's a huge tree laid across the house. And he's like, yeah, we found out, we're working on it. I was like, okay. I mean, I guess call us when you get it off and you know more,
but and when we say it fell, branches through the ceiling. We went inside at some point soon thereafter, and literally it fell all the way through the house. I mean, so this wasn't just some roof damage. I mean, this was structural damage, water damage. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But then the other house that we were looking at had 5 executors. So
it was an estate sale.
It was an estate sale, and it was high drama, and they had listed it for way overpriced. And then we put in an offer, and they didn't even respond.
Well, we offended them.
We offended them, I think, a little bit, but
well, again, in our defense, a bit. So it was an empty house. We had looked at it a couple of times. They had a car in the driveway
they did.
That had very obviously not been driven in a long time. We kind of needed a new car.
We did need a new car.
It was,
we were in the market.
Yeah, we were in the market, and we're like, cool, let's throw that in. And so our real estate agent at the time was like, look, you can make anything a part of the deal. And so not only did we look on a lowball, we put in there, I think $1 for the car, and just hey, we'll take it off your hand. Just leave it there.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. And it was the lady who had lived there. I think it was her car, and she had passed away. And yeah,
the things that we didn't really
know. That didn't go over great.
It didn't go over well.
They didn't respond.
But then they ended up lowering the price
a little bit,
and then basically it was a best offer. There was someone else who was interested, and so we went in at the highest price that we felt comfortable with, and they accepted. But then it didn't appraise well at all.
So we made an offer for a certain amount. We agreed to it, and then we went and had the appraisal done, and obviously we were getting a loan, and so the appraisal amount, we couldn't get a loan high enough to be able to meet our asking price. And so, I mean, again, it was tens of thousands of dollars less.
It was really low.
And so we just went to him and were like, look, this is what it appraised for. This is what we can do. This is it. We can't do anything else. And
we proposed an average. It was we averaged out some of the factors. I don't know. But anyway, they took it because I guess they realized that they weren't really going to get a better offer, because you can't really argue with an appraisal. And that was the third party thing. So anyway, we ended up moving in there, and then we ended up doing a lot of work to that house. It was very cute, and we thought it was this great lot, and we thought it was our forever house, because at the time we were only going to have 2 children.
Yeah, I don't remember ever putting a number. I was just like, whatever. I guess however many you want.
So, and at that time they were obviously, Holland was born 3 months, 2 months after we moved, 3?
Something like that.
Something like that. Very, very quickly after we moved in. But I didn't know we were going to be homeschooling. I mean, there's just so much that we had not, known or, really thought about. And so then we ended up, having 2 more, and we are definitely set in the homeschooling thing. And again, adorable house. And it was good. Like, it worked. It absolutely worked. But we also kind of just we started feeling a little unsettled. Not unsettled, like not content. Like we were very thankful. We loved our neighborhood. We didn't want to move, but we kind of just both, I don't think I'm speaking for you, but we just kind of both felt like this probably isn't going to be our forever home, but we weren't just going to go get a bigger house to get a bigger house. Like we love the neighborhood. We love the lot.
Also, bigger houses are more expensive.
Bigger houses are more expensive, and they're a pain because you have to take care of them and all that stuff.
I think part of our unsettledness, I think that's what that's a word.
It is a word, actually. Usually they're not.
It is. Like you said earlier, we had started earlier in our marriage, and I grew up this way, and I think you did to an extent too, but like our home was just a place where people could come.
Exactly.
Growing up, I had friends whose families moved, right? Like they were, juniors, seniors in high school, and they lived on my floor for a while. We had, people that were going through family issues would stay on our couch so it was just like, oh, that's what we did at our house. And I think you and I wanted to be the same way, and we were early in our marriage, and we started having kids at this other house, and it was like, oh, we have no room, and not necessarily like, hey, we got, we want people sleeping on the couches and the floors everywhere, but we wanted room to be available, and we ran out because we filled it with children's.
Yes. Well, but we couldn't host like any kind of life group or Bible study or anything because we had like a upstairs above the garage room, which kind of was like our multi-purpose room, but it was primarily our homeschooling room, and like that really didn't work. And then the living, we had one living space, and that was 2 feet from their bedroom door, so it was just not a good situation. And we've talked to several people who are in the same boat. And so let's let that be an encouragement. Like, especially when you're in the season of having babies, it's a lot. And so don't feel guilty for not being able to have that open door policy. And there are some people I know who can and do anyway. Good for you. Like that's awesome. But for us, it just was not the time in our lives. We had 4 babies in 6 years, and it was a lot, and then we didn't have space. And I think another thing, to your point, that kind of pushed us over the edge a little bit, knowing that wasn't necessarily our forever home, was I started mentoring a couple of teenagers, and one of them loves to bake, and so I'd have her over frequently to bake with me, and I wasn't used to having another full-size person in the kitchen with me, and the kitchen was very small. And so I just kind of got a glimpse of, oh my goodness, we have 4. There's going to be 4 like normal size human beings in our future. That's not too distant. I don't like how we can do this. And again, this is not third world problems. Like, like bajillions of people in this world have far less. And so we were content, but that was our heart's cry with all of this was, Lord, if and when you open up an opportunity, like we really want to be that ministry base again. We really want to have that open door policy. We really want to just have people in, have them over, and have space for them, because we'd have parties and just kind of get-togethers, and it was like packed like sardines, which was great for like the intimate feel. But so that was kind of our heart's cry. But it was so weird. How many years? I don't know how many years. I don't even know when we really started seriously considering it, but
it's probably 3 years.
I mean, it was a solid, I would say a solid 3 years. We saw countless houses. I mean, so many houses, mostly in the neighborhood. Cause again, this is where we love, and we knew we,
Plus
love
it's fun just to go in your neighbors' houses.
Totally fun to snoop. Yeah. You're welcome. Right. Yeah. We're those people. But anyway, so many. And there were so many that on paper were perfect. They fit they check all the things. And then there's this one house that I love that I called the church house, because when you walked into it,
I hated it from day one.
He did. He does not lie. But it looked like a little chapel, like just the way that the ceilings were pitched. Oh my goodness.
Kind of like a chapel that's fallen down.
Okay.
If you could picture
it was falling down.
Yeah. Like Really
oh my
old
goodness.
chapel.
Stop. It was so cute. I love that house. And we just thought that we knew there were like some issues, obviously. Like there was a lot of DIY stuff, which doesn't scare us, but the floors, we thought it was like a bad install job because they were kind of like, not buckly, well, kind of buckly, but we just thought they weren't installed properly. So I was like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And then we made an offer and we weren't under contract, but we were like talking and we were trying to sell our house to see, anyway, all this happened. But then we got the inspection and, it literally was falling down.
I had some issues. Yeah.
The foundation was not good. It was not good. It was apparently not designed like well from the beginning. So it had accumulated just all the moisture for 20 something years. And in the low country, that is not a good thing. Anyway, it was literally falling down and we were like, there's just no way. And anyway, so that wasn't working. And then,
well, I don't know if you remember. So we made an offer on that house and we had seen it, because you liked it. We had seen it 300 times and walked through it. And
I loved it.
It was fine, walking through. I was like, whatever. And then we made an offer. They countered, and we had to decide if we were going to respond or not.
Yeah.
And so it was like, all right, let's go see it one more time. We walked in.
Well, we had listed our house though.
we were on the market. Yeah, we were on the market. It was
it
was happening. So it was like, all right, let's do one more look.
One more good
and
one.
My parents were in town and they hadn't seen it yet. I was like, let's go show them. Let's go walk through. And it was like the scales fell off our eyes. We walked in the house. It was like, wait, how long has that mold been in the corner? And wait, none of the doors close. Like that can't be normal.
An exterior door, like not just interior doors. Like one of the exterior doors did not close all the way.
Yeah, and then like, hey, why is the attic like completely sealed off with insulation? Like all the vent holes and everything just spray foamed
over the vent holes.
So all of a sudden it was like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think we're out.
Well, and then we didn't realize either, but where the foundation had literally broken, it was in the kitchen. And then when we looked, you could see the cabinets like totally shifted.
And again, none of that's catastrophic. Yeah, but it was more than what we were willing.
Well, it was at the top of our budget.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's top of your budget, like you can DIY some stuff, and there's top of your budget, like it needs a foundation. And we were not in that place. So I was sad because I just do love the house. And then, but then we had we're like, I quit. Like we were just like, we're good. We're good. So we had the idea to build on to our house. So we're like, okay, fine. If this is where we're going to be. That was the other thing too. We were unsettled, but we were also, I don't know, so weird. Like we were very thankful. We were content. We weren't just like wanting to get something just to get something, because we could have done that, very easily. But we had this like urgency. We both knew that we felt this urge to do something. And so we and that involved practical things. We organized and cleaned our entire house. We hired a great friend who's a magician.
Shout out Stacy.
I know, Stacy, you're amazing.
She's not listening.
She will. I'll tell her to. But anyway,
that'll be one.
But so we did practical things to get things ready, and we even had an inspection done. We had an inspection done on our house. Started working stuff off that were.
Shout out Scott.
Go Scott. Scott. So we started doing practical things, but it was just weird. So we were like, okay, well, if this isn't going to work out, if buying a new house isn't going to work out, let's add on. And so we had contractors come, builders come, and then we hired an architect to come and draw up plans. And even that was
meh.
It was. And it took forever and nothing was going well. We had a screen porch and we're like, well, let's just start by enclosing this, because this will give us another pretty decent sized room. And we were hitting roadblocks with that. And then we were hitting, it's just everything was just no. And so this was at the end of last year. We had gone through major transitions on all kinds of other fronts that year. And so finally we were just just whatever. Holidays, we're just not even going to think about it. I don't want to think about it anymore. And then January comes along and my sister was our realtor, and there was a new build in our neighborhood, and she's like, do you want to go see it? And
we're like, yeah, neighbor's house. Of course we want to go see it.
Yeah. But it was actually really reasonably priced. It wasn't though.
I'm just saying.
No, but that was the thing.
That
it was
stop us.
very reasonable. No, it wouldn't have, but it was very reasonably priced for what it was. So we're like, I mean, yeah, let's go. And then I just was looking on Realtor, Zillow or whatever, and noticed that there were 2 other houses within range. Well, one wasn't, but sort of. And so and they were vacant. So I was like, well, can we go just see these 2? And she's like, yeah, sure. So, the first house that we went to wasn't the new build. It was one that had been on the market for a few months, and one we had we knew it was for sale, but we had absolutely no interest in seeing, like,
for no real reason.
No,
it's just like, okay.
It wasn't a real reason. Like, I think I looked at the listing and I was just like, meh.
Yeah.
Just meh. And so we came and we're looking around, and I don't know exactly how long it took, but at some point reasonably quickly, I found you, and I was like, so are you liking this? Because I'm kind of liking this. It's checking a lot of boxes. And it was great bones. I mean, and that was kind of like, I'm looking, like, at this point we're trying to do everything eyes wide open. So, like, floors are solid, and everything is structurally very, very sound, but it hadn't been modernized. I guess it hadn't been updated, but it was in great shape. But it was tired. It was tired, and we were just like, oh my goodness, we really like this. Weird. And then we went to the next one, which was the new construction that we were just woefully underwhelmed by. It was just not. Plus, it was like, I feel like it was 35 feet high in the air. So many stairs. Anyway, so we're like, no. And then we went to this third one that was, I think, haunted. I mean, it was not okay.
I mean, haunted houses aren't a thing, but yeah.
But I mean, if there was ever one, it was that one. It was a little scary. We didn't even really finish that tour. But anyway, we were like, well, let's, put an offer and maybe see what's going on. And there actually was, they were already in negotiations with somebody at the time. Or like, well, that figures. We just assumed it was another no. And then we decided to do it anyway. We decided, they were doing like no contingency. Mm-hmm. They were like, they had an offer, and then they were under contract, and it fell out of contract the day before closing. So they got burned. And so they're like, we're not doing contingencies, blah, 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 blah. And also funny story though, when we saw this for the first time, Maylee, our third, who was 4 at the time, we left, like, we were like standing in the yard, or maybe we were still in the house, and she's like, this is going to be our house. And I was like, whatever. And our girls have been troopers. I mean, they saw almost all the houses with us, and they've never been impressed. I mean, I don't think they really cared. Like, it's fun, let's go see a house, and then we leave. But Maylee was like, this is going to be our house. And I was like, May, no, it's not. And I remember we saw it on a Saturday, or like we were talking about putting an offer in. And on Sunday morning, she's like, I prayed to Jesus that this was going to be our house last night, like driving to church. And like, we're trying not to get like frustrated with her. Like, I mean, no, it's not. Like, we've seen 55,000 houses. It's not. And we're trying to curb, but then we also don't want to be rude. So we're like, okay, well, we'll explain the process and why it really just doesn't work that way very often. And anyway, but she was adamant. I mean, she was adamant, and she said, we need to pray. And I was like, okay, May, we'll pray. And we did. But it was very much more to appease her than anything else. But anyway, so we're sitting in membership class at our church, and we get a text saying that they have countered. Was it counter? I don't even remember. All the details are so fuzzy, but anyway, they were interested in talking with us and going under contract. And long story short, they ended up going under contract with us fairly quickly. But that meant, so we were at membership class. That was a Sunday night. And you left that night to go on a work thing for a
couple days.
Yeah. Was it only a couple days?
I think so.
No, it was a week.
There was just a couple strung together.
Was it?
Yeah.
That was a separate week.
No, I had a couple of things happen.
That was right. But it ended up being like a full work week, but it was different places. All that to say, so he's not here at all. And it wasn't like he's just working a few hours each day and we can talk. Like we can always usually talk fairly well without interruption, but like we couldn't because he was just slammed, fairly, really busy. So I'm like, I'm trying to communicate everything to him, but he's like getting back to me at whatever he can. It was very stressful. But then we knew when we were under contract or almost under contract. And I was like, oh snap, I have to get the house ready to list. So we listed it on Wednesday, but we didn't have anybody come until Sunday. So Sunday was gonna be our open house. So 1 week. So he was gone. I was like running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get the house ready to show. And we have 4 little kids, like not the easiest thing in the world. So we're like going. And then it's Sunday morning and we're getting ready to go to church and we have the open house that afternoon. And then like our toilets break, like the line gets clogged and like he ends up having to stay home and watches, online and goes to Home Depot. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness. But then, and we listed it very aggressively, like low, really low, because we wanted to sell, like we wanted to get rid of it quickly. And, but we didn't have any offers and we had like the most well-attended open house.
Yeah, it was a lot of people
ever. And we had numerous showings throughout the week. And it was just like radio silence and we had people coming back and we were just like, oh my word, Lord, like what is going on? Because we very much felt at peace with this whole thing. Like it was the weirdest thing. But we were like, okay, if it's going to be a no, can we just stop? Because I'm really tired. I'm tired. Yeah. I'm tired of keeping the house clean. I'm tired of like going through all the motions. Just make it no. And then we hear that this family is coming in town that Friday just to see our house. And we were like, well, that sounds promising. And it went really, really well. And they were going to sleep on it. Their plan was to just, go home and sleep on it. But they ended up not being able to. They were so excited. They made the offer that night and it was a full price offer and it was not contingent. And it was just all of these things that was just like, okay, there you go. And so, it was... And then it just honestly felt from that point on, just like we were being carried because there was a lot of drama with I mean, it wasn't normal stuff, but it just felt like a lot. And we just
packing your house and
moving, but you still had
all those
to have
logistics and
contractors come in that fix what needed to be fixed or not even that, getting quotes for what would need to be fixed if they wanted to do it. And so we had probably 12 different people at 12 different times come through the house in the midst of packing and boxes and all of this other stuff. So it was a literal whirlwind. I mean, it was just all a blur. And then we knew that we wanted to get our floors done in this house, like before we moved in. And so trying to coordinate all of that because we knew we're never going to do floors if you move in first.
Yeah.
Like it's just, that's not going to happen. So we started researching all of that and figuring out what floors and the timing of everything. And then we had drama with pre-occupancy and post-occupancy. We ended up getting any of that. And it was just like one thing after another. But the day came, we moved in, and then we didn't move in. We had the floors. We were still living with my parents who are wonderful. Another shout out. This is like the episode of shout outs. And all throughout this time, I was still doing the podcast and I was still writing when I could and doing all of this stuff.
We set it up one night at your parents' house.
We set it up one night at my parents on the couch. And so I was like totally expecting to just keep rocking. Like, and then we moved in. And again, I thought in my mind, when you're going through this, you're like, oh, let's just get in. Like once we get in, it'll be done. It'll be done. It'll be good. It'll be fine. Not so much.
Not when I'm married to you.
Rude. Rude. True, but rude. But then we had we painted.
Yeah, it's just projects, right? Everything. You want to get things
need to get done.
Just as close to what you want your home to be, right? Yeah. And so there's things that it's like, all right, we could do this later, or it's already chaos. Let's just keep the chaos going. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So it's been 3 months of chaos.
It has been 3 months of chaos. But like But you think about it, like you don't want to hang everything up on a wall and
That's
then
right.
go back and paint it one day and move all the furniture.
Yep.
So it was stuff like that. So like, well, we knew we wanted to paint because wonderful people who lived here before, not our taste. And so we painted everything. So like all the main spaces. And then there's this huge wall in the room, kind of like right past the entry. And we both knew that was like made for built-ins. And we were like, let's just do it now again. Embrace the chaos. That took a while, but you rocked it.
Of course
it looks so good.
Just don't look close.
Well, not anything really. But
Yeah.
like while he was doing that, we painted, and then he was starting to work on that, and then I was painting the dining room, and then I was painting the office, which we're sitting in my office, by the way, and it is so pretty. But this is the first time I've color drenched. Do y'all know what color drenching is?
It's a whole other topic.
It's really cool. Well, I have to say it now. Basically, you just paint everything the same color. So ceilings, trim,
I feel like it's pretty
doors.
self-explanatory. Like
You
color
think that,
drench.
but I've talked to lots of people and they didn't really know what it is. So I feel like I
Drench
clarify
everything.
it. But it's really pretty and I'm very excited. But anyway, but it's been a lot. It's been a lot. And so this, but then I didn't want to set up all my podcast stuff when like this was a mess and I didn't even know like what was going on. So anyway, all that.
Yeah, and I feel like too, it might be important for future guests. Like I'm sitting on a leather couch, so the random like squeaks and stuff are not body noises; they're couch noises. So we'll work on
working
that.
out all the kinks.
Yeah, I
We're
feel like
working
we
out
need
these-
some acoustic
But I
treatment.
feel
in
like
here, too.
that was like an upgrade though, because we had these like dinky little chairs before.
That's right.
No, it's working, but it's just all the things that you think about but don't think about. And anyway, so we've been on this like rush / marathon to get it done, at least like the main spaces. And the primary goal there is we really want to start hosting Bible studies and groups in the house again. And so we were like, let's just take the summer and get it as done as we can in the main spaces so that we can, just have people over. And we're not going to get done, obviously done. We have a couple big projects that aren't going to get done by the end of summer, but we can get one done, I think. I think we can get that done.
We'll see.
Anyway, that's where we've been. And Maylee was right.
Yeah,
Maylee.
Yeah, listen to your prophetic children. I guess.
Prophetic children. It was a surprise to me, like it was to you, but
That's right.
we were tired.
Constantly. Yeah.
We're so tired. We're so tired, and
Need to wrap
anybody
this up. I'm getting sleepy.
who's been through this as will know that is a real thing, is being tired. But we are so excited for how God is going to use this, and we've prayed over it. That's the first thing we did when we closed and we came here. We just went in the living room and we prayed, and the girls prayed and had a little dance party in the front yard. And we're so excited to be here, but not because it's a new to us house, but just because of how God's going to use it. And we're trying to make it warm and inviting, not for our sake or so people will be like, oh, it's so pretty. But like our prayer is that people would feel God's presence, like when they drive up, but obviously right when they walk through the door. And for the ministry that will happen with the podcast, and for books that will be written and conversations that will be had. And we are just excited. We're just excited. We're tired, but we're excited. But I did promise that I would tell you hopefully it's been fairly obvious, like what all of this has to do with the Lord. But God is in everything. And I will say the timing of this is interesting. So what I didn't say, I've shared in a few episodes before, how last year was like a huge year of transition, and we knew that it was going to be, but this was kind of the last and just huge piece. And we had changed in careers. You had gotten a new position. I had given up photography. And then we knew church. I mean, just like lots of big things happening. And, so we knew transition was starting, but the first one didn't happen until March of last year. And then in God's perfect, amazing, wonderful, beautiful timing, we closed and moved in. on March 30th. Well, we closed earlier in March, but we moved. Our first day was
Easter Sunday, wasn't
Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
It was Easter Sunday, and it was March 31st. So it was 1 year, almost to the exact day that he had told us we were going to have a year of transitions, and it was. And so that was really cool.
Yeah. It was.
So that was really cool. But just a couple of points kind of as we wrap up. One, in all of this, I guess we want to encourage you to be close enough in your relationship to God, be close enough to him to not only see him move, but to join him in it. We were in that period of 3-ish years of waiting. But we weren't just sitting by twiddling our thumbs. We weren't being idle. We were watching him and anticipating, so we were ready when he finally did decide to move. And I think so much of our lives as Christians is missed because we aren't close enough to the Lord to be able to see him move. And our church is going through Joseph right now, and it's been really fun because the girls and I have been doing that with homeschooling too. But we're not told in that narrative when all of it clicked for Joseph, because obviously when he's standing before his brothers and he says, well, you meant this for evil, but God meant it for good. And he raised me up, for this time. So we're not sure when exactly all of that clicked for him, but it did. And he had known that presumably for a little while because he'd been in tune with God, with what God was doing. And so sometimes you're in a Jonah season of life where God has to throw you in the belly of the fish to get your attention, and it's not easy and nothing makes sense, and you're trying to do everything right, but it doesn't feel like anything is happening. And that's where we were. And it was just, it was a little restless. It was unsettled. It wasn't like we were but we're not doing anything wrong either.
Right.
You're not sinning. You're not, doing anything where he's calling you to repentance. I mean, he's always calling you to repentance, but big things. Sometimes it is a Jonah season, and sometimes it's a Job season where you're just kind of going through a funk. Well, he went through much more than a funk, but anyway, but it is much easier and it's much more pleasant to do what Jonah didn't do until later, and that is to follow him initially. And so that's one encouragement, is be close enough in your relationship with God to see him move, but then join him in it. And then the second big point is to trust him. That sounds so ABCs, but it's so important. We have to trust him. We have to leap, because this did not, this whole move thing didn't make sense on a lot of levels. We were fine where we were, especially financially. He had called me to give up photography, and just not a lot about it made sense, but we decided to trust him, and we were at peace the entire time, even with all of the drama and all of the chaos. Just trust him, trust that he has your best interest at heart. Even when life circumstances don't seem to bear that out, trust him to provide. He always provides. It may not be in the way that we want to be provided for, or may not be the way that we think he should provide. But he always provides. Don't miss out on amazing opportunities because of anxiety or worry. Don't be frozen in fear. If he gives you peace about something, move in that and trust him, because he is the one leading. It's not us. Praise God.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think that's for me anyway. I think this whole story, and the reason that we're doing this, is it's a story of faithfulness, right? God's faithfulness to us, and us trusting and moving. It's, the example we're using is our home. But the reason we're telling the story is not hey, look, we've made some really great real estate moves, and look how cool we are. And, this house is beautiful. We're super blessed to be here. There's people all around the world that,
oh my goodness,
don't have a millimeter of what we do, and are more faithful than we could ever hope to be. Right. So I think the point, at least for me, and like you said, is trusting where he's leading you. And for us, again, this was a story about our house, but it's a story really about his faithfulness, and just our family, you and I and our family being consistent, not forcing our will in this specific situation. I've done it in other situations and it's worked out poorly, but yeah, I think it's just a testament to, he is working, he's moving, you know, again, this house could get struck by lightning and burn down and we'll, you know, go back to Aberdeen and live in 1,000 square feet and be fine. And that would be a story of his faithfulness to us. Right. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
That's what I feel when I walk in here is like, okay, we were obedient and we waited and we did what he was asking us to.
And he gave us so many assurances and reassurances too. Like, so I called that other house the church house. Well, it took me too long to realize the word cross is a part of our new street name. And it was just like, oh my goodness. Like, it's just, he always has something better than what you could ever ask or imagine. Again, this is a tangible, you know, this is a tangible story, but that's not always true by any stretch of the imagination. But it was just like, he gave us so many little exclamation points in this. Like, you thought the church house would be cool. Let's bring it back to the cross.
Here's a cross house.
Here's a cross house. And we call it the cross house. And it's just, and again, there's been lots of little things like that where he's just, again, little exclamation points of this is of me. This is of me, follow, like just reassuring. But yeah, it's just, are we going to trust him? And again, and I've had the thought many times, like maybe he's calling us to just make this house, like make it beautiful for whoever's not, I mean, I hope not.
That's right.
I hope not, but maybe it is.
That's how we end this.
Fine.
There's actually a new listing coming on the market.
Oh, no, I'm so tired. I don't want to do that. But over. Anyway, but trust him. And like a third point that I think is also really, really important is do the work. Put in the work. This whole thing was hard. It was not easy. And as I mentioned, it broke me to the point I was sick. Like I got sick for 6 weeks because I was just exhausted. It wasn't like I'm sure I did get a virus, but it was just, my body was just shut down. I mean,
the coughing you were doing all night, I'm pretty sure it was a virus.
Sure. But forever, like I was sick forever and I didn't have a voice for weeks, but it was stress induced because I was just going nonstop. So like, obviously you need to rest and incorporate it, but we literally didn't have time and we were going. But we worked to make it happen. But, you need to do the work. Like if we hadn't have in that season of waiting gotten that house where it needed to be, like it would have been so much worse because we had inspection, items to check off, but it was nothing like it would have been if we hadn't touched anything or been diligent about getting those things. So we worked hard. And then again, part of the reason that we're making this house beautiful, like we didn't have to, I mean, it was very much great move-in condition, when we moved in. But part of the reason that we're making it beautiful is to just reflect that in the Lord. Like, I mean, it's to put in the work and make it and be a showcase of, his testament to what he's given us and who we are. And anyway, so do the work. If you're in a season of waiting, don't wait idly. Don't wait just sitting down, twiddling your thumbs. What can you be doing? And maybe you have some decisions that need to be worked on in your faith. Maybe it's a relationship with your spouse. Maybe he wants you focusing on a relationship with a child or with a coworker. Who knows what it will be? Again, this house thing, it was the longest transition in waiting with all of our transitions. It was very, very long. Well, maybe not.
I don't know. It felt long.
It was a long time. But the point was, it was the last one to come. And it only came after all of the other ones had been dealt with. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. So do the work, be diligent and purposeful in your time of waiting. And you will reap many benefits from that. And another point that kind of is another circle for what we've already said, but his plans are always better than ours. They're always better than ours. And the funny part of this story too, is that we moved like 500 feet away from where we
Don't do that, by the way.
Oh my goodness. It's so
You're like, we're just moving down the street. How hard could it be?
It's so hard. But what's cool about that though, is we are really close to our neighbors before, and we really didn't want to leave them. And then we're close to We're still close to my parents, live really close, and we're close to a family on that street, really close with them. And I didn't, even if we were in the same neighborhood, like I didn't want to move like so far away where we wouldn't see each other frequently, even when we're like going on walks or whatever.
Yeah.
So it just.
Yeah. Well, and even since then, like we've moved into this house and there's 2 families now that we were friends with that are now either have moved into the neighborhood or will be moving to so the community's growing, and it's like, okay,
yes.
Not that we didn't have roots before, but it's like, okay, this is our place. These, this is our spot.
Right. And it's just, he's confirmed it over and over again. So, just always know that his plans are better. And again, if we would have tried to impose our will on one of the other houses, who knows if we, on the church house, like we would have been, well, right. It would have been.
And if those people are listening, we've seen that you've done a lot of work. I'm sure it's beautiful.
I'm sure the foundation.
Please invite us over.
What's the first thing you did?
I hope so.
Oh.
Because your doors didn't close.
Stop.
Well, I'm just saying they didn't.
His plans are always better. Another thing, and I think we've talked about this a little bit too, don't get too attached to things. Even houses in this world. This is not our home. And this is a huge point. We are putting a ton into this house, but we're not doing it again because we expect to be here forever, or we're clinging to it like a kid who just got candy and is never going to let it go. God has given us this house for a season, and I do very much hope it's a very long season. But if it's not, it's okay, because it's not our house. It's his house. And I think we do have a tendency, just as people in general, to get really attached to things. And that makes life very difficult when he decides to take that away. Or I think, honestly, it's one of the most gracious things he can do to us is take something away that we've replaced him with in our lives. But just a reminder, like, do not get too attached to things. Do not get attached to the idea of something. Maybe you're thinking that, if I could just have a new house, or if I could just have a new car, or if I could just have a new job, or if I could, whatever the case may be. No, he's given you what he's given you in the season, and you need to embrace it, and you need to use it and use it for his glory, and you need to be content with it. But don't get too attached to anything in this world, because this is not our home.
Yeah. I think Americans too, and maybe for the 2 guys that might ever listen to this, I think guys are more prone to this than probably our lady friends, but don't play the bigger and better game, and same what you were just saying, but especially our society, it's like, all right, we've got this house. What next? What can we, can we do next? And it's like, be content and live. I don't want to say minimally, but just live with what you need. And
yes,
obviously we have much more than what we need, but live within that context and not always striving for the next.
And that's a prayer that we prayed. I don't even know how many times at our other house is, Lord, we're cool here.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like, please, like, remove this unsettledness if you want us to stay here. Like, please do that, because we wanted to in a sense, and like we wanted to build on, like, it made sense to do all that thing, but he did not remove that sense of like unsettledness from us, even though we asked him numerous times to do so. But like, we were trying to be content. We were content, but
that's right.
But pray along those lines more than, oh Lord, just give me this. Just give me this. Especially if it's something tangible.
Did I want it to have a dock? Sure. But it's not a need.
Does not have a dock.
It's not a need.
No, it is not a need. So don't get too attached to things. Don't always look for the bigger and better. He is our bigger and better. And he is the one that we need to be most attached to. Another thing, and we have just 2 more things. But the second to last one is be patient. Be patient. And I know that sounds so much easier than it is, and it's not fun, but it is a must. We were patient for years. We were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and trying new things and waiting some more. We knew we weren't going to be there forever, but we had no clear direction. And God just kind of forced us to be patient, because we were kind of in this like stuck rut where we didn't know what he wanted, but knew it wasn't probably going to be there. And anyway, so our job as Christians is to follow him, and it's to be patient. It's not to force our hand. It's not to try to force his. Be patient with where you are, be patient with him and trust him. His timing is always perfect. Not only are his plans better, his timing is always perfect. And again, going back to that just year of transition thing, like it was absolutely perfect. And then just the fact, I mean, even other little details, like we were in this house, we moved, like all of this happened right as we joined our church, which I'm actually really thankful for, because if we had been there for a year and gotten super plugged in, we would have had to scale back a ton. So, now it's like, okay, we're getting our feet settled, and then we're going to go, start easing our way into ministry there where we have started. But anyway, so be patient, wait for him. And then finally, and this is really important, and this is why we're doing this, we need to thank and praise him directly and then to others. We need to celebrate when he works in our lives and in each other's lives. And we, again, to your point earlier, we have the tendency to, okay, well, we got it done.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
I'm going to play that back to you when I finish a project and you're like, all right, what next? It's like, nothing. Well, we need to enjoy it
we're enjoying those built-ins are awesome. And then we did, but yeah, I did make him put molding up in our dining room this past weekend. There's always a project, but we need to thank him. We need to praise him. We need to celebrate that. And that's why we're sharing this. It's to explain where I've been the last several months, but also just to thank him for what he's doing. And we are so excited. Like we're very much anticipate what he's going to do, with this place. And yes, there's always going to be projects, but, just to be thankful for the momentum. Like this was a big deal. And there are big deal times in your life, and there are small deal times, and big or small, we need to praise him and we need to thank him, directly and with others, and talk to our children about it and tell them how exciting it is. And always go back to the refrain of how good he is and how awesome it is and how worthy he is. And if you listen to the Thanksgiving episode, go back and do that if you haven't, because it's cute, because our daughters make their debut. But you'll remember that I talked about the difference between thanks and praise. Thanks is is thanking him for external things, for tangible things, for what he gives us. But praise is given to God because of who he is, independent of what he gives. And so make sure that when you are thanking him, you're also and foremost praising him for who he is, for his faithfulness, like you mentioned earlier, for his forbearance, for his provision, for his timing, for his everything. So praise him purposefully for all things in all seasons. Praise him for who he is when you're waiting, even if you've been waiting a really long time, and praise him in the seasons when he moves and we're able to follow him at full speed, and then praise him in the ears of others. Rejoice, celebrate with one another. I think that's also kind of becoming a lost art. Like we need to lift each other up. I think we're so focused on like comparing and contrasting and like just this competitive nature. We need to praise him for what he's doing in the lives of others, as well. So let praise always be on your lips. And hopefully this not silly story, but just the story of where we've
like
been.
Veggie Tales.
No. Stop. We're so tired anyway. That's the story. That's where we've been. I'm hoping now we've switched. We've got the mic set up. We've got everything ready. So we're going to kind of hit the ground running again. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for praising him with us. And I pray that some of what has been said tonight hasn't been us, that it's been him reminding you of something or bringing something to light that maybe you hadn't thought about before. But I do pray that he would work powerfully in and through your life in whatever situation, whether you're in a season of waiting or whether you are in the midst of the chaos. Maybe you're in our last 5 months or so. And maybe you're tired too, or maybe you've given up. Maybe you are kind of where we were right before everything kind of happened. But I do pray that you would continue to trust him, continue to be patient, and continue to work and be diligent and vigilant about what he may or may not be calling you to do in the time of waiting, because his timing is always worth it. So Thank you again for joining us today. If you have questions, I doubt you will about this episode, but just questions in general, just go ahead and send me an email at kingswind@gmail.com. That's KINGSWYND@gmail.com. As always, I and we are praying for you, praying that God will continue to illuminate your mind and ignite your faith, especially as you embrace his patience and extend it to others in your daily life.